You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
What a beautiful day for horses in the morning.
You are listening to the #1 horse podcast in the world. Here is your entertaining look at the horse world and the people in it.
I'm Megan Brady.
And I'm Jennifer Hopton, and you're listening to Galloping Getaways for Thursday, June 27th. As always, we are on Horses in the Morning every fourth Thursday of the month and cover everything equestrian travel, brought to you by the Equestrian Travel Association.
Good morning, Horse World. This month, we'll be discussing non-riding equestrian retreats, spending time in the presence of horses, focusing on meditation, journaling, and our overall well-being. We will also be chatting with Jen Verharen about her Cadence Coaching Wellness Retreat, a unique non-riding equestrian retreat in Portugal.
Ride away with us on this special monthly equestrian travel episode, brought to you by the Equestrian Travel Association.
So Megan, I was thinking about our show today and the idea of non-riding equestrian retreats, and I thought, what an opportune time to talk about this as we're in the middle in some cases, or for some people, maybe just kicking off their show season and championships and, schooling shows, recognized shows and things like that. But taking a step back and looking at opportunities we have to spend with our horses or other horses doing things that are not in the saddle, whether it's grooming your horse or spending time in the presence of horses with yoga, meditation, journaling. There are so many activities, I think, sometimes that we lose sight of when we're ride, and we're getting ready for our next competition. There are so many other opportunities we have to spend with our horses, and again, with other horses as well, just enjoying their presence, being able to decompress, spending all of this quality time with them for our own mindfulness and also for our horses as well. And I know you'd mentioned to me, obviously we've shared with each other our experiences on equestrian retreats, most of which are in the saddle, but I know you talked about having several retreats that were non-riding. They were still with horses, but non-riding. And I'd love to hear more about those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all kind of started at, my first actual experience with doing that type of work with horses was actually right out of college. I was in AmeriCorps, which is like the Peace Corps in the United States. I actually worked at a psychiatric hospital for children, and they had a horse therapy program there, and it was all non-riding activities. So even in that situation, we got to really bond with the horses and the children, doing group activities such as group counseling. We did journaling with the kids during that process. They would, look out at the herd and see the dynamics of the herd. So even things like that, I was exposed to at a really, a younger age. And it was really powerful to see the impact that had on the kids and even myself as their counselor. And then, like you said, I have taken a couple just non-riding retreats over the years and had some really great experiences. Some of them I took actually a journaling course, a writing course about that was all geared around horses. So we would go out every morning and watch the herd, and we would journal about what we would see. We would go spend time with them. In that setting, we would take the afternoon and do an afternoon meditation outside their pasture, things like that. And it was really grounding to see that and experience that. I've taken some yoga retreats around horses as well, where we did yoga outside the pasture, and just even being in that atmosphere and like hearing them whinnying and hearing them just blowing and chomping on their hay. It creates this tranquil feeling, and it's just really powerful. And then to come home from those experiences and apply that with my own horses, go down to the barn and maybe just sit in my horse's stall and maybe myself read or write, or just being in the barn and just spending time with them when it's quiet and no one's around, it's just me and the animals, is just so powerful. And I highly recommend doing that if you have horses, just to do that yourself, because it creates a peace in your soul that is undescribable, actually.
I love that. And I think it's, like we said, just such a great thing to take a step back and enjoy the simplicity of horses, watching them interact. I think in spending time with them that way, we also learn so much about ourselves. I love the idea that there are retreats out there that can be tailored for us as individuals. There are places that offer different ways of going about kind of the theme of the retreat. There's ones I've read for groups, women
Absolutely.
or
Yep.
young teens, and kind of they're structured to help them with empowerment, self-worth, and all of these things. And I think it is so unbelievably powerful what we can learn just not being in the saddle. I mean, certainly we learn plenty when we're riding, of course.
Absolutely.
It is humbling to be in the saddle for sure. But I think it's also humbling on the ground and really just observing our horses, observing other horses, being with other people doing the same thing. I feel like it's one of those things, sometimes we get caught up in this idea of an equestrian vacation needs to be in the saddle. We need to be riding at a beach or
Absolutely.
going on a safari or doing this, that, and the other. And yet there's just the idea of having a retreat that is so simple in nature about what you're doing, but such a powerful experience. Like you said, a life-changing experience, and you never put your foot in a stirrup.
Absolutely. And it's just so powerful. And I think it's a gift to, be in that atmosphere with the horses and just connect with them in that way, and just be with them almost in silence, and just listen to what they're doing. And it's actually just meditative for ourselves. And I think it can be a really powerful thing that we can do, whether, like you said, we're taking a retreat and we're taking that time for ourselves, for that reflection, for that empowerment, for whatever that enlightening that you need or whatever you're looking for in that time. But we can also take that time for our daily lives with our horses, right? So whether you own horses or you ride or take lessons, I think we can have those moments too in our everyday life that are just as powerful.
I agree. And I have to say, it's funny in mentioning certainly taking that time with our own horses, but it also brings to mind the idea of maybe people can't necessarily get out and travel for whatever reason. On a retreat, you can kind of have your own staycation equestrian retreat,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
One with your own horses, or if you don't have your own horses. I know I have 6, so I'm willing to share mine. Certainly if somebody wants to have a retreat, you have several yourself. We have a lot to offer, but certainly, just like you said, what I love about sort of these ideas of yoga, meditation, journaling, finding inner peace, mindfulness, and things like that is that it's not something, yes, travel is exciting and it's very important. And it's certainly why we're here. And we love the idea of equestrian travel, but you can just travel down to your own barn or wherever you board and have a similar experience if you can't necessarily get out to a retreat overseas, or maybe you have one coming up, but you want to sort of spend some time getting into that centered part of yourself just by doing it locally. And,
Absolutely. And I think we should do that anyway, right? Before we ride, I think it would be nice if we all took a breath and took a moment to think about and be present with our horses, right? Just on the ground. But I think it's a good exercise to even try to do right before we get on, to take that moment and be really mindful about what we're doing so we can be present for them. They're present for us. And so when when we're busy throughout our day and bring our day to the barn before we ride, you and I both know that affects the animals. We've seen it. And
Yes.
so I think that it's really great to have that practice in your everyday life and your everyday riding. And then, not to be so consumed, like you were saying earlier, about having to ride all the time. The horses bring us other things besides that as well, besides riding, and gives us a connection to nature and to ourselves. So I think we should take time to appreciate that and to honor that and be present with that. And that's why I'm so excited about our next guest, Jen. I've known Jen for years. I've worked with Jen, so I'm super excited that she's going to be on our show today and talking about her retreat.
I couldn't agree more. And I was surprised sort of in preparing for the show today and looking at all the non-riding equestrian retreats. There's a surprising amount of equestrian travel that is non-riding, but very much equestrian in nature. And, certainly with Jen's retreat over in southern Portugal, I know you took some retreats in Georgia and other parts of the country, and just so many stunning locations.
Yeah,
I want to go to all of them. There's no doubt. I'll have to be on travel for the next 18 months so we can hit them all up. But the idea of just how many different places offer this type of activity. And of course, some of them are paired with some riding. It's, but at the same time do offer these other components to just really spend time. And I can't, say it enough, but finding your center, finding that inner peace, decompressing. I mean, I know certainly you and I are both business professionals, and it's when your mind is constantly going just 100 miles an hour all week. Sometimes certainly, we work on weekends as well. This idea to just be able to step back and spend time with these animals that we're so passionate about, whether they're ours or they're horses at another location, and just really remind ourselves of just what life is and the beauty of it and the beauty of these animals, and bringing our anxiety level down and really just learning things about ourselves. I've never actively done a bunch of journaling. I've done some, but not probably as much as I would like to, and certainly not as in depth. But I would imagine that is such a great outlet too. And I can really see the joy that one could get in doing that, paired with just being around the horses.
Yeah. I will say that is something that I do and have done for years, and I do it almost on a daily basis. And it's funny because I usually just do it in the morning when I wake up or in the evening. But since we've been researching this, I've actually been going down to the barn and doing some journaling in the
Love it. Yeah.
right next to my horses before the day gets started. And it's been so powerful, and it just connects you to nature, to them, and gets you to see them in a different way, which is really wonderful. And so it's been a great experience. I'm so thankful that I've had those experiences and I've had the opportunity to go on these retreats. And the thing that is really great about them is you can really customize them and find them for what you are looking for. So like you said, maybe you don't do a lot of journaling, but you want to spend a week really kind of getting into that creative mode for yourself. So you can pick a retreat that's really centered around that, or yoga or mindfulness, or maybe fitness classes, or maybe you want to go with a women's group or a group of friends or things like that. There's so many out there that can be customized for what you want and what you're seeking, which I love. And it can be everything from going into the mountains to going to the beach. Like you said, there could be some maybe sunset, walking tours, hiking, whatever you want, whatever your fancy is, there's options out there for everyone. And you can find all these equestrian retreats just right on our website at rideeta.com. When you go to our homepage, you can select the type of experience and scroll down and hit workshops and retreats, and they will come right up. And you'll see examples like Soul Discovery in Georgia. That's actually one that I've taken, and it's amazing. Her name's Teresa Wolf, and she's located right outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Our guest today will be leading the Cadence Coaching Wellness Retreat for equestrians at the Wild View Retreat in southern Portugal in May of 2025. We'd like to introduce our guest, Jen Verharen. Jen is a professional performance, business, and leadership coach. She's the founder and creator of Cadence Coaching and specializes in working with equestrian athletes and entrepreneurs. Jen has put together this exciting retreat, which includes daily yoga, mindfulness training, fitness, physio classes, and group life and performance coaching, all customized for equestrians and delivered by respected industry experts.
Well, welcome, Jen. I'm so excited to have you on Galloping Getaways. I'm so excited to hear about your trip. We spoke the other day, and so I did learn a little bit about it, and I'm just super excited to share it with our guests. So tell us about your recent trip to Portugal. What was the motivation for taking this trip? What horse adventures did you experience? And what was your favorite part?
Oh, that's a big question. Thank you so much for having me, Megan. I'm really looking forward to kind of continuing our discussion about this. I went to Portugal for the second time this last time, and the first time that I went about a year and a half ago, I went to celebrate a transition in my life. My son had recently graduated from high school, and I wanted to go on a bit of an adventure and do a bit of a reset in my life. And I walked the Camino de Santiago with a friend of mine for several weeks, and then I spent months riding Lusitanos in Portugal. And
Wow.
It was an incredible experience just to be there and experience riding in a different culture. And the riding there is very drenched in history and in classical riding. And I just had such a good experience that I ended up wanting to go back. And so more recently, I went again with the idea of continuing my pilgrimage, partly, that I had begun in 2022. And this time I had additional reasons for going. I had, in that interim year and a half, and you know some of my story, but
I do.
In that interim year and a half, I had lost my own horse tragically.
Yep.
I had to euthanize a young horse that I had had from the time he was 2, and it had actually left me horseless for the first time in my life, or the first time I was 6 years old. So I had gone through that, and then my son also had a really traumatic accident, and he is a cowboy, and he had got a spinal cord injury in a rodeo 1 year ago, last 4th of July. And so I had lots of changes in my life, and I had to postpone the second part of my pilgrimage a couple of times. And then this more recent time, I was going to go back again to do another pilgrimage and ride horses again. But the friend that I travel with also had another sort of trauma in her life and had a diagnosis that prevented her from coming with me. So this trip unfolded for me in a really crazy way, because a lot of really difficult things happened, but ultimately those things allowed me to have what actually was quite a life-changing month this last month. And so I actually got to design my own trip. I spent a month in Portugal, and this time I did spend time walking, but I also did my own writing retreat, and I decided to spend a week in a ruin that has been transformed into a retreat center in southern Portugal. And I spent a week there, and then I went and spent another week riding Gitanos there.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was sort of serendipitous in a lot of ways. So that is what inspired this most recent trip, to answer your question, was again a reset, and also an opportunity for me to process some grief, and also come to terms with a new transition in my life. So that's what I got to do for a month.
Wow. I know it's been a tough year, to say the least. And so it's really great that you had the opportunity to take this time for yourself and have that experience.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
So, Jen, what inspired you to create the Cadence Coaching Wellness Retreat for equestrians? It sounds like certainly with the experiences that you've had so far with both your trips and just in your personal life, I would imagine helped to develop maybe the foundation or the idea to have this wellness retreat, but we'd love to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so, over the years I was a dressage trainer and eventing trainer for 25 years. And then for the last 15 years, I've been a performance and business coach for equestrians. And one of the things that I have learned about us as people, and I continue to learn, is that we are very, very passionate about caring for our horses. And we invest in them as athletes, and we spend a lot of money, time, and attention on their health and their well-being. And, because horses are 24/7 for anyone who's passionate about horses, yes, we have our families, we often have important jobs, or we run businesses, and we, struggle to have integrated lives because horses quite often take up such a large part of our lives, and they require a lot of resources.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I can hear. I think everybody.
I can relate completely.
I said that very diplomatically. But what I have learned as a coach is that quite often riders are reluctant to invest in themselves. And we sometimes forget that we are as much athletes as our horses. And one of the things, I actually went to this wellness retreat not at all with the idea of doing a retreat for equestrians. I actually was planning at the time to do a walking, retreat for equestrians or a riding retreat for equestrians. But I'll tell you why the experience for me, I did this wellness retreat, to be honest, partly because I had a blank week. I was trying to fill, and I found I was really attracted to the story of this particular retreat because the founder is a man named Andrew from Great Britain, and he had a lot of hardships. This retreat center was born through a lot of hardship, and I was really attracted to the story of how this incredibly beautiful place came to be. So I went there, and to be very honest, I'm not a fan of yoga. I actually hate yoga, or I just hate yoga because I'm stiff, and I'm, I find yoga hard. And so I was sort of reluctantly going, thinking, this will be an adventure, and I'll enjoy, clean eating for a week, and I'll enjoy being in this beautiful place. And I really wanted to swim in that infinity pool that I saw in the picture.
Absolutely. Of course.
And I had not yet traveled at all in southern Portugal. I'd spent so far all my time in northern Portugal. So what I experienced when I was at this retreat, there were a couple of things. One is I got to have a different experience of myself because there are two pieces to what happens at these retreats. On one hand, there's a degree of structure, so you actually are held accountable for extreme self-care. There was no caffeine and no alcohol and very clean eating, and there was a routine, and there was the opportunity to meditate and do yoga and to work out and to swim in the lake and to read and relax. Like, there were all of these things that we all think all the time we want to do for our self-care. Absolutely. But here you get to go into a situation where this is set up for you. Mm-hmm. And so I love that idea of having accountability around all the things that I want to do for myself, but very rarely find the time or the discipline for. Mm-hmm. So that was one piece of it. But then there's also this incredible amount of spaciousness that's created because you minimize media, you have time during the day, to think and breathe and plan or reflect or write or, whatever it is that you need to spend the time doing. And for me, I had a lot of grief to process. I had people, I wrote about it. One of the things I said, I felt like I had been sort of putting my thumb on a volcano of grief for the last year because I'd had hard things happen and I just kind of had to keep going. I kept all my clients and I kept my job and I was helping my son and, dealing with a lot of horse people after I lost my own horse, dealing with their own horse challenges. So I got to take my thumb off the volcano of grief when I was at this retreat. And it was
That gives me chills.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little emotional because, I spent the first couple days like just breathing, and tears would stream down my face, during the meditation. And it was like I just had so much pent up emotion. And, as horse people, we carry a lot for our horses. We carry a lot of responsibility, whether you're a professional horse person or you're an adult amateur or, you're a recreational rider. Like,
it doesn't matter. It's still, it's still a big responsibility, and it's a burden almost that we carry.
Well, I think too, it's very interesting. Jen, you had mentioned just our presence of mind and the mental headspace, where we are in our mental headspace when we're with our horses. I know all of them are sensitive. I have one out of my 4 that is hypersensitive to where I am mentally. I know I've had stressful days at work. I go down to get him and he'll give me this look like, not today. We cannot be together. This is not our time.
Hey, Mom.
That's right. Go back in.
You need to go meditate, Jennifer.
That's right. Go meditate, go journal, and give me a call back. But right now this isn't happening. And to your point, we do sort of forget about, we are 50% of this partnership in whatever capacity. And making sure that we are feeling balanced, feeling in a good mental headspace is so critical. And yet I know for myself, certainly, I lose sight of that.
Yeah.
In everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you
and I
created
think you're not
this.
alone.
Yeah. No, I don't. No. I think everyone experiences that with our horses, and there's just like you said, the responsibility and the time that it takes to care for them, and we feel guilty when we're not. At least I do. And I do feel guilty when I do take time for myself, which is silly because, like Jennifer, you just said, we are 50% of this partnership. And if I don't take care of myself, then how am I coming to the table as an equal? Yeah. So I think this is so wonderful that you created this space for equestrians to experience. So what can, if I'm coming along next year, so what can I expect when I walk away from attending this?
Well, that is the other. So to be honest, when I left the retreat, I had not yet had fully the idea of doing a retreat for equestrians, because I hadn't yet experienced, the thing that really inspired me to get this ball rolling was when I went directly to ride. I went drove a couple hours and directly spent riding in Portugal there. And I rode twice a day for 7 days. And the experience I had of riding, and I hadn't ridden in a while, so I was expecting to feel stiff and sore and achy and awkward and rusty and all of those things. And what I really learned, the lessons that I had carried with me from the retreat really affected powerfully the way I was able to be present with the horses. And it was, I actually, when I was riding, felt like I hadn't had any time off. I had no aches and pains. I felt supple. I felt connected. I felt able to be present. And, to the idea of sitting quietly and not striving, to invite rather than insist, to wait and not rush, to breathe instead of hold. Like, these were all the things that I had been playing around with in the meditation and the yoga all week. And then they just provided this incredible enlightening experience for me to have a new experience of myself in the saddle, and then have a new experience of the horses because of the presence I had. So after the first couple of days when I was riding again, I thought, this would be an incredible thing. So I started making arrangements and I started putting feelers out. I can't even tell you, I'm just shocked by the amount of interest I have had in the idea of this retreat. So my plan now is to have 7 days. And yeah, I'm super excited you're going to be there, Meghan.
Yep.
So it'll be 7 days next May, so a year from now. And we'll have a team of equestrian experts, mindfulness and yoga, along with a fitness expert. We're going to have an equestrian artist there who's going to do, we're going to be able to do art. And an amazing chef, a Portuguese chef, who will be, providing us with 3 beautiful, clean meals every day. I always tell everyone that I felt like I was eating rainbows every day there. The food was just incredible. And so the idea is to create an opportunity for riders, professionals, and amateurs alike to come and give themselves a reset and an opportunity to experience what it is like to have both a whole lot of spaciousness and time for whatever they need it for, and also a structure and accountability around their own health, and to have truly a full week to treat themselves like athletes and develop new habits that they can take home, both spiritual, like mental, emotional habits, and physical habits. And, I spend most of my working life discussing these topics with riders. And so I'm really looking forward both not only to going back myself and doing it again, but also to be able to share this experience and create a new opportunity for riders, to sort of deepen their own, personal and professional growth experiences in order to make them better for their horses. One of the core values of my business is that happy people make happy horses. And so that this retreat feels very much in alignment with the mission of my business, Cadence Coaching. So I'm super excited about being able to do it.
Yes, I'm super excited. I'm super excited for you. I'm super excited that I get to go. It just sounds like a magical experience. And you and I have worked together for years, off and on. And when I heard about this, when you posted it online, I was like, oh my God, this is something that I have been craving for years, literally years. Yeah. And so if I'm craving it, so many other people are craving it. So I'm so thankful that it's finally coming to fruition for everybody. This is great.
Me too. And I do want to emphasize, I really don't believe that you have to go to a foreign country and spend money and make a big deal in order to do this for yourself. But what I really want to do is create an opportunity for people where they are very intentional about making a choice to invest in themselves and actually take time away. And we don't need horses to do it, right? You can go on an equestrian vacation or have an experience traveling that doesn't necessarily involve horses, and it can still enrich you greatly as a horse person. So I think it's important to note that it's, this isn't an elite experience at all. I am, really wanting to make it accessible for people, and hopefully it'll be something I can repeat and do either once or twice a year moving forward. So perfect. Yeah, thank you so much.
I truly love the idea of this. As Meghan and I were talking about earlier in the first segment, just the idea of equestrian travel can be more than just sitting in the saddle. And I love how succinctly you put it, which is happy horses and happy people. It's so true. And it is something where we don't prioritize ourselves to some degree, not so much in a selfish way, but more in a way of what do we need to do to help ourselves, to help our horses, and to be there for our horses. And it is, I laugh certainly about, well, my horse is getting shoes again every 4 weeks, and my toes won't be in open-toed shoes for months because I don't know that the public needs to see that. But at the same time, the bigger picture, and all joking aside, is just our mental well-being and what we bring to the table. And just the idea of this, and still, of course, having horses involved in it, because they bring so much to the table. And I think riding is, when you really look at the overall picture, it's such a small subsect of what they bring for us, and, what we're truly passionate about with them.
Yeah.
So what kind of accommodations are provided for participants during your retreat in Portugal?
So this place is just incredible. Like I said, it's a ruin that has been basically reclaimed, and there are several different sort of types of accommodations there. There are beautiful rooms that are actually sort of rooms inside a building, and there are what they call shepherd's huts, which are little huts, and they all have electricity and heat and everything. There's a yurt.
Love it. Yes.
And one of the actually the best things is a couple of the shepherd's huts share this incredible bathroom that looks out over, has a window and it looks out over the hills. And so the accommodations, I would say they are luxurious, but at the same time rustic. They're in a sort of a rustic setting, but they're very luxurious, and a lot of attention is paid to detail, and they're very comfortable.
Awesome. That sounds great. And like I said, we'll be listing it on our website under retreats, so I can't wait. The trip is from May 24th to the 30th, 2025, which I can't believe I just said out loud. And and the cost ranges between $2,100 and $2,400, and it's all inclusive, obviously not with airfare. So that's such a great deal. And once I saw that, I was like, I have to do this.
Now it's time to take out your culinary passport and join us for our Gourmet Globetrotter segment with our recipe of the month.
Jen is back. As you know, we do favorite recipe every episode. So Jen, please share your favorite recipe from Portugal and a little bit why this is your favorite.
So upon arriving in Portugal, you will see everywhere these beautiful little burnt custards called pastel de nata. And they are incredible. I start and end all of my walks with these. They are just like the most decadent little treats. And I loved them so much when the first time I got home from Portugal, I decided to try to make them myself. And they're basically little puff pastries, and you put them in little muffin, you get puff pastry, you cut them in little circles, put them in little muffin tins. And I'll give you guys the recipe. You mix heavy cream and sugar and eggs and cornstarch and whole milk. That's it. Whip it all together, pour it in these little custard tins, put it in the oven, and pretty hot because you want it to get this like burned crust on the top. And then you can actually keep them in the refrigerator. They're really good warm, and they're really good cold. They're really good with coffee. And I really wanted to give you guys a healthy recipe.
It's okay.
but
That
I
sounds
was like,
delicious.
No, this is absolutely the thing that Portugal is most known for, I think. And they're just delightful little custards. So I'm really excited to share the recipe with you all and see how your listeners like them.
Awesome. Sounds so yummy.
Everything about that sounds good. And my husband is a huge custard and pastry person, myself included. Certainly I'm in that group as well, but I could really see him loving this.
Yes.
We'll have to try it because everything you mentioned, it's check, check, check. Every single one for him. So
he will love them. You definitely have to make them for him, Jennifer.
Absolutely. And we will put the exact recipe in the show notes. So for all of you that want to try it, it will be out there for you to follow up on it. Now, remember, for all things non-riding and riding, you can go to www.rideeta.com to find not just retreats and workshops, but cattle drives, safaris, all sorts of trips that are equestrian based in nature. We hope you have enjoyed trotting along with us and discovering new destinations on horseback.
Until next time, saddle up, explore the world, and may your travels be filled with hooves and happiness.